And for more on this, we're joined by Juan Zarate, CBS News national security analyst and a former deputy national security advisor on terrorism for President George W. Bush. He's in our Washington bureau. Good morning, Juan.
Good morning, Anthony.
Juan, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, put this level of data gathering in place years ago, didn't it? I mean, is there anything actually new going on here?
Well, what you have, Anthony, is the FISA Act passed in the late 1970s that established not only the process for acquiring intelligence information within the U.S., but the court system itself. The court actually authorizes these kinds of activities. What you had in 2008 was a renovation of that law, a new law passed to account for the new kinds of communications that we have to deal with, the internet, telecommunications across borders, and in some ways codifying what the Bush administration had been doing. And what you see here, I think, is just a continuation and amplification of what started in the Bush years.
On that same note, during the early part of the presidency, we watched President Obama really try to separate himself from these policies. Do you feel some sense of validation? You worked for Bush, and now we essentially see him continuing some of these terrorism policies.
Thank you for the question, Vanita, because I do, actually. I think when I got out of the White House, I started giving speeches and lectures, I said you would see fundamental continuity in our counterterrorism policies and practices by necessity. And I think you're seeing another example of that here. You've seen it in the debate about targeted killings. You've seen it in the question about long-term preventive detention, getting intelligence from terrorist operatives, and frankly, the need as commander-in-chief to protect the country and to do everything legally that's possible to find those needles in the haystack to prevent terrorist attacks. And I think that's why you see President Obama defending these practices and sounding a lot different from candidate Obama.
Juan, the president seemed to be saying, as you alluded to, that we need to recalibrate our sense of privacy here. But, I mean, you can't help but look at what's being done. And while the government says there are walls to protect people, it's so easy to cross over those walls, isn't it?
Well, I think one thing, Anthony, to keep in mind is that the National Security Agency in particular has built into it systems to minimize how it looks at or encounters information about American citizens. It is one of the most sensitive elements of their practice. They've got lawyers spend millions of dollars worrying about not looking at American citizens' information. That said, I think what this revelation or series of revelations forces us to do is to look at how the government is actually doing this. And the fact is that we're talking about major data sets that the government is accessing, and that's worthy of debate.
So do the companies involved in all of this have some sort of legal obligation to deny involvement? Because I think in this case in particular, we're seeing two different sides. One side saying we cooperated and one side saying we didn't have anything to do with this.
Well, the companies are in a difficult spot because they are required to adhere to the legal process that if they get a subpoena from the FISA court, they have to comply or fight it in court. But so they will talk about what they're doing in terms of compliance, but they don't know what the government is ultimately doing with this information. They can speculate, but they don't know. They don't know the name of the program. They don't know who else is involved. And so this is a difficult position for the companies to be in because they have to cooperate with court orders, but they're caught in the middle of a classified program that has now been leaked.
Juan Zarate in Washington. Thanks, Juan.